Welcome to the Vault here at the Petersen Automotive Museum. My name is Michael McCardle, and today I'll be your tour guide through pole position, offering a glimpse into the thrilling world of Formula One, the premier international motorsport featuring open-wheel, single-seat racing cars battling on street circuits and dedicated race courses around the world. Pole position features an incredible collection of official F1 show cars courtesy of Juan Gonzalez, a member of the Petersen Museum Board of Directors and the chairman of Mission Foods, a proud sponsor of the McLaren IndyCar team. These cars showcase the incredible technological developments that have taken place throughout F1's recent history, from the late 1980s to the present. Formula One, as we know it, began nearly 75 years ago, but its origins go back much further. Evolving from pre-war Grand Prix racing, the first set of Formula One regulations were established in 1946. The formula in Formula One refers to the specific rules by which all teams must follow, including specific guidelines within which teams must design and build their cars each year. The first race contested under Formula One regulations took place in 1946 in Turin, Italy, with a Drivers' World Championship organized 4 years later in 1950 and a Constructors' Championship organized 8 years later in 1958. Though F1 was originally based in Europe, it has become a global phenomenon. Today, each season consists of over 20 races called Grands Prix that take place across the globe, from right here in the USA to Australia, Brazil, Japan, and just about anywhere in between. One of the most significant areas of advancement in Formula One has been in the field of aerodynamics. Aerodynamics is the study of how solid bodies move through the air. Formula One cars are built to generate downforce, utilizing the same principles that allow an airplane to fly, only in reverse. Because more downforce is generated as the car drives faster, a Formula One car has more grip at 150 miles an hour than it does at 50. But winning a race is not just about speed. There's an old saying in racing: to finish first you must finish. Formula One cars must be incredibly reliable. These engines are pushed to their absolute limit lap after lap, and a breakdown means an early ride home with no points to your name. Now, let's move on to some of the fantastic vehicles on display here at pole position, beginning with the 1987 Lotus Type 99T, driven by the legendary Ayrton Senna in his final year with Lotus. The 99T was the first racing vehicle to successfully implement active suspension technology, which allowed electronic systems to constantly adjust the suspension, achieving better stability and reduced tire wear. Orphaned of the Renault engines that had powered their cars in previous seasons, Lotus agreed to terms with Honda to use their 1986 engines, the still very powerful RA166E, a 1.6-liter turbocharged V6 capable of producing 900 horsepower with 1987's 4-bar turbo boost restriction. Turbo was then banned in 1989 and brought back in 2014. Despite not being a front-running car, Senna piloted the 99T to 2 victories, the final 2 for the historic outfit that had achieved 7 championships in the 60s and 70s, as the team was disbanded in 1994. 1987 was the first year for Lotus without the iconic black and gold from their previous John Player Special sponsorship, in favor of this gold and yellow camel livery. Moving from one of the first cars to use active suspension in Formula One to one of the last, here we have the 1993-94 Williams FW15. Fitted with traction control, active suspension, and anti-lock braking, the FW15C was perhaps the most technologically advanced race car of its time. After these systems were banned for the 94 season, in part to refocus the sport on driver skill, the FW15C was stripped of its driver aids and designated the FW15D. Penned by the legendary Formula One designer Adrian Newey, it was used in the off-season by Ayrton Senna and Damon Hill as a testbed to inform the FW16 that would be designed and built from the ground up without those technologies for the 94 season. In 1994, Williams benefited from the well-balanced Renault V10. Things were about to change with the tragic death of Ayrton Senna at the San Marino Grand Prix, giving rise to a new era of dominance from the German Michael Schumacher, who would go on to win the first of his 7 world titles that year with Benetton. The McLaren MP4-10 was the first McLaren racing car to utilize Mercedes-Benz engines, marking the beginning of a long and prosperous McLaren-Mercedes partnership that has since produced more than 80 wins for the British team. Despite high expectations, the partnership did not provide immediate results. The MP4-10's cockpit was infamously too small for former world champion Nigel Mansell, who had come out of retirement to partner the promising Mika Hakkinen. This led Mansell to sit out 2 races until a revised chassis could be produced. Another 2 races later, Mansell left the team for good, citing issues with the car's performance. The MP410 was only able to finish races in the top 3 twice in 1995, finishing a disappointing 4th in the championship. Nonetheless, the McLaren-Mercedes partnership would produce 2 drivers' championships in '98 and '99 at the hands of Hakkinen, as well as the first championship for a young Lewis Hamilton in 2008. The 1999 season was one of the most competitive and memorable in the history of the sport. A close, season-long title fight was contested between the Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Eddie Irvine, and the reigning champion Mika Hakkinen and his teammate David Coulthard at McLaren. The Ferrari F138 was nearly identical to the previous year's car, mildly improved with a new front wing, wheel tethers to keep the wheels attached in case of a crash, concave side pods, and an improved exhaust system. 1999 regulations required the use of Bridgestone tires with 4 grooves instead of 3, a method of slowing the cars down amidst fears that they were getting too fast for the safety technology of the era. The McLaren MP414 was another Adrian Newey design for the Woking UK team. It was the fastest on the grid in '99, with aerodynamics that were even more advanced than the previous year's dominant MP413. While the Mercedes engine remained the most powerful on the grid, its unreliability allowed Ferrari to remain in contention and eventually win the Constructors' Championship. Despite being fastest on the track, the age-old adage held true: to finish first you must finish. Despite a promising start to his season, Michael Schumacher's championship hopes were dashed when a crash at the British Grand Prix left him sidelined for 6 races. His teammate Eddie Irvine stepped up and brought the fight to McLaren, achieving 4 victories to secure the Ferrari Constructors' Championship, but ultimately losing the Drivers' Championship to Mika Hakkinen by only 2 points, highlighting the perfection necessary to win in F1. It was a dramatic finish to the season, with mistakes and breakdowns plaguing both teams. Most notable for Irvine was a botched pit stop at the European Grand Prix in Germany, where he was stationary for 30 seconds waiting for a mechanic to fetch a forgotten tire in the garage. This mistake is often remembered as the critical moment where his championship aspirations failed. Similar errors plagued Hakkinen, from the previously mentioned reliability issues to multiple unforced errors where he crashed out while leading at the San Marino and Italian Grands Prix. Despite the setbacks, it was ultimately Hakkinen who would defeat Irvine at the final race of the season in Japan, winning the driver's title by just 2 points. The F138 was the final Ferrari Formula One car to use a V8 before regulation changes in 2014 dictated that all teams must use a 1.6-liter turbo-hybrid V6. It was driven by 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa, who achieved 2 wins in the car. Alonso in the F138 achieved 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship, but could not compete with the utterly dominant Red Bull piloted by Sebastian Vettel. It was in this period that Formula One cars began to grow in footprint, in part for safety reasons. Improved crash structures take up more space, but also to provide more space on the body for downforce producing aerodynamic elements. Moving forward to 2020, we have the Racing Point RP20, dubbed the Pink Mercedes by fans due to a striking similarity between this and the previous year's championship-winning Mercedes-AMG W10. The car sparked controversy and inquiry from F1's sanctioning body under the suspicion that the 2 teams had illegally colluded, exceeding the legal limitations of Racing Point's contract to use Mercedes engines. The team was cleared of any wrongdoing, admitting that they had, in fact, done their best to copy the successful Mercedes, but without the help of the German team. Along with controversy, the RP20 also brought results, earning the first win for the team and Mexican driver Sergio Perez. From 2014 to 2021, Formula One regulations underwent minor changes but remained fundamentally the same. These periods of regulation consistency loosely define the eras of Formula One cars. A defining characteristic of these vehicles is their incredibly complex carbon fiber aerodynamic packages. This complexity can best be seen in the rear wing and in this area of the car just behind the front wheels, referred to as a barge board. Historically, barge boards were rather simple aerodynamic devices intended to capture turbulent air from the front wing, suspension, and wheels, and direct it around and away from the car. Throughout the 2010s, this area of the car became one of the most developed. Barge boards became increasingly complex webs of carbon fiber intended to capture and direct airflow more precisely, improving the car's stability, reducing drag, and increasing the amount of downforce that could be produced by the rear wing and diffuser. In 2022, barge boards and other intricate exposed aerodynamic elements were banned as part of a regulatory overhaul that reintroduced ground effect aerodynamics to Formula One. This was done largely to reduce the negative effects experienced when one car drives closely behind another. All of this complexity could manage airflow perfectly when driving through still, predictable air, but when driving in the turbulent wake of another car, it would be less effective, giving the lead car an advantage and making passing too difficult. The new ground effect cars, unlike the previous generation, create the majority of their downforce by forcing air under the car and shaping the underfloor to accelerate the air and generate a low pressure area underneath the car, effectively vacuuming it to the road. On this 2023 Aston Martin AMR 23, a current generation car from the same team as Racing Point owner Lawrence Stroll purchased Aston Martin outright and renamed the team in 2021, you can see that the barge board has been replaced with this large air intake, which drives air underneath the floor to begin creating this vacuuming effect. Because of the downforce created underneath the car, the visible parts of the body are now optimized to cut through the air, and forming the sleeker, cleaner design you see here. Perhaps the most significant regulatory change during this period of consistency was the addition of the halo in 2018. The halo, a safety device designed to protect the driver's head in the case of a crash, was made mandatory for all teams to use in 2018. Another visually distinct part of the 2021 regulations overhaul was the switch from the 13-inch wheel to the 18-inch wheel. And finally, we have one of the most dominant Formula One cars ever built, the 2023 Red Bull Racing RB19. The most recent of Adrian Newey's championship-winning designs, the RB19 was driven to a nearly perfect 2023 season by Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, winning 21 out of 22 races. Max Verstappen set a record for consecutive victories, earning 10 in a row during his 19-win season, on the way to his third consecutive Drivers' Championship and the second Constructors' Championship in a row for Red Bull Racing. Formula One cars are more than just feats of engineering. They're representations of the human capacity for innovation, for competitiveness, and for outright excellence. The sport pushes the limits of what's possible, creating an entertainment spectacle while developing innovative technologies not only in the automotive field, but also in manufacturing, logistics, and information systems that are used around the world. We hope you've enjoyed this look into the thrilling world of Formula One with pole position here at the Petersen Automotive Museum. This exhibit wouldn't have been possible without the generosity of Juan Gonzalez, a passionate motorsports fan and Petersen Museum board member who has lent us these cars from his own personal collection. My name is Michael McCardle. Thank you for watching.